My story starts in 2008 when I was 13 years old. I was sitting on my back porch and I remember I was reading a book and I got this feeling of just overwhelming terror and dread, and I started crying. Um, my parents are very involved in my life, and I knew if they saw me crying, they would ask me what was wrong, and I didn't know what was wrong. So I ran to a park near my house and experienced what I would later learn would be my very first panic attack. When I was 14, the voices started, and they would come during panic attacks and tell me things like, you're worthless, you're useless, you're stupid, nobody cares about you, nobody loves you. And I didn't know what to do with that. So I started frantically writing these thoughts down in a journal, um, just trying to get the thoughts out of my head and onto paper. And I hid this journal underneath my mattress. Well, one day my mom found it, and I was terrified because being South Asian, I thought that if my parents found out about this, they would disown me, they would berate me, they would tell me that this wasn't real, that I was making it up for attention. But I was wrong. Instead, they got me help. They took me to my doctor who prescribed me medication and got a referral to a therapist. But one thing that my parents did was, because of the culture that we grew up in, they told me not to tell anyone about this. And I think that definitely made me believe that this was something to be ashamed of. And so I kept it a secret from everybody that I knew, um, for such a long time. And that led to me self stigmatizing and not wanting to take my medication and not wanting to go to therapy and just thinking that I could just, if I ignored the problem, it would go away. Well, when I was in college, I was living in a dorm. And when I started having panic attacks again, I was terrified as to what to do. And so I decided to go out on a limb and tell someone about this. And I told my, at the time, best friend. And she got the school equivalent of a restraining order put on me, and actually tried to get me kicked out of my university. And so suddenly here I was, people knew about my mental illnesses, and I was fighting for my right to stay at school. And it was really, really difficult. But my boyfriend told me if I'm not going to share my story, people are going to fill in the blanks and they're going to make assumptions about me that are not true. And so I started telling my story fully, um, leaving nothing behind, leaving nothing on the table. Because if people were going to make judgments about me, I wanted them to judge me based on the truth. And that's when I started telling my story, and that's when I started becoming an advocate to try and break the stigmatizing view that society has about people with mental illnesses, and really bring out the stories that show that we are worthy of love and respect and trust and everything else that everyone else is deserving of. I discovered NAMI my sophomore year of college. I really wanted to do something related to mental health, and someone mentioned NAMI on campus about wanting to start a club, and I just hopped on board. And within a couple of weeks, we had founded Duke's NAMI on campus, and we had over 500 members. And it was like it was easily the biggest club on campus. And ever since then, I have just been so in love with NAMI's mission and NAMI's work. Having a mental illness has closed some doors for me, but has opened so many more in terms of how I take care of myself, how I see myself in the world, how I am able to do things, and the strength that I have both emotionally and physically. Um, and I think NAMI is the only place where that has really felt accepted and celebrated, which I really, really love. If you don't put your ideas, your story, your opinions out there, they're not going to do anything. They're just going to sit in your head and collect dust. You know, you are an incredible person with so much potential, and you need to go out in the world and show the world what you're made of. And it's going to be hard, and it's not always going to be well received, but there are so many people in the world that love you, and so many people in the world that are in your corner. Um, so go out there and make your voice heard. Tell your story, tell it loud, tell it proud, because your story is one worth hearing.